Alright guys, we are back in the Perfected Auto World headquarters, also known as my garage. I know it's been a while once again since I've made a video, but you know, the holidays came along and I'm still busy at work and super cold outside, but I've also been working on this video for probably about a month now. And it's a video I said I wasn't going to make, but I did anyway because it seems to be a problem with a lot of 370Zs. So hopefully the conclusion of this video will help someone. Alright, so I mentioned in my last video how much I love the exhaust sound now, but what was ruining the experience for me was the rattles inside the car. So this video is about finding those rattles and fixing them. So the first part of this video is actually fixing what I thought was the main rattle, and it actually turned out not to be, but let's take a look. Alright guys, so this is just a quick follow-up to the video I made about the rattle in the back of my car. I took this cover off and there's actually a lot more stuff under here than I expected, but none of it's actually rattling. So this is the weight that I was talking about. I'm probably going to take it out anyway just to reduce the weight of the car because I don't really see a real benefit for it. But I think the actual rattle is coming from the panel itself, these clips or something. So I think what I'm going to do is go to Home Depot tomorrow, buy some weather stripping or something, put it in here just to, I don't know, bring it out a little bit, add some pressure on it, and see if that will eliminate the rattle. So it's also really helpful to have these plastic or nylon tools, whatever they are, to take off these kinds of trim pieces because it doesn't scratch them or anything. I got those on Amazon. They were pretty cheap, so they're definitely worth getting. But the other rattle is still somewhere on this side, and I can't pinpoint it yet, so that's the next thing I'm going to work on. But anyway, I just wanted you guys to see what was under here. And in case you didn't know, there is a weight there. So, all right, so I just went on a little test drive without this piece in the car, and that was about 90% of the rattles for sure. So, like I said, I think I'm going to go to Home Depot tomorrow, get some weather stripping to go on this part just to push it away from the metal a little bit, and hopefully that will stop some of the rattling because that's definitely the major reason for it. Also, here's the weight. I took that out, and it's probably close to 8 to 10 pounds or something like that. So it's a good weight reduction. But I guess the purpose of it is when you close the lid, it shuts. But the benefit is now when I press the two buttons to lift up the lid, I don't have to do it twice. So I really don't see that being something necessary. So took it out, saved some weight, and a little bit of hassle opening the lid. I have been driving around for the past couple of days without this cover on the back, and that definitely eliminated about 90% of the rattle. There's still something. It's in the passenger side. I can't figure out where it is just yet, so I'm gonna have to pull that trim off. But a new sound, and I think it could be because this is off, but it sounds like there's a nut or a bolt just laying loose, rolling around. So I'll have to figure out what that one is too. But I think once I put this cover back on, hopefully that one's eliminated because I never heard it before until I took this cover off. So now I'm going to put some weather stripping. I think right in this area here would be the best part. That's probably going to make contact here. I don't know where else it would make contact, so I think that might be the best spot. By the way, this is where the weight was. I just put the bolts back in so that I don't lose them, but anyway, if you have one of these cars, it makes a lot of sense to take that weight out because now the hatch opens properly when you press the buttons. So anyway, I'm going to get to the weather stripping now. So I found some old weather stripping in my crawl space. It's got some adhesive backing. So what I think I'm going to do is stick it right here in these sections, and then because I think that'll make the most amount of contact with the metal, and then hopefully that puts enough resistance to eliminate any rattles. So I peeled the backing off the weather stripping and stuck it to the plastic trim piece, and hopefully it's thick enough that it will make contact with the metal. Trim piece is back on, and unfortunately the weather stripping idea did not work. I can still clearly hear the rattle when I'm tapping on that. So I think what I'm going to do is find a thick piece of foam or something like that, basically just stuff this whole area, and if that doesn't solve it, I don't know what will. So I just noticed that even all the way to the edge, it's got that rattle sound. So I think the best course of action might be a thick layer of silicone caulking or something like that. Let it dry before I put it back in there. But so foam here, silicone here behind this piece, and then hopefully that solves that problem. So now I'm going to try to figure out what's going on the passenger side, and if I can just eliminate these two rattles, I'll enjoy this exhaust system a lot more. This stuff is pretty thick, so hopefully it does the job. But first thing is I have to vacuum out the back of my car here, because this is disgusting. I went to Home Depot, bought a little bit of firewood, which I wasn't expecting to do. So anyway, let me get rid of this first, and I'll get back to the weather stripping. So much better. Alright, so this is the weather stripping for my first attempt, which did not work at all. So I'm going to take that off, and I think this time I'm going to concentrate more along the edges here, because that seems to be where all the rattles are coming from. Alright, so here is attempt number 2. As you can see, I did mostly around the perimeter. I used a lot more weather stripping, and hopefully this solves the problem. I know that really the best way to do it is use something like Dynamat or something, but since I just saved a bunch of weight from the exhaust and getting that weight out of the back on the hatch part, I didn't want to add any weight back in, plus Dynamat's expensive. So anyway, I'm going to stick this back up and see if it worked. Alright, so before I put this trim piece back up, I also put a little bit of weather stripping right here and right here where it was making contact with the metal. I did it on both sides. That was rattling quite a bit. So hopefully between all this weather stripping on all these pieces, we should be able to get rid of the rattles. Alright, so the trim piece is back in, and I'm pretty encouraged by the lack of rattles I'm hearing when I do that. So it's time to take it on a test drive and see what happens. Alright, so I know it's hard to tell over this GoPro, but 90% of the rattle is gone now. That definitely worked. And right around this RPM range, around 3,000 or so. I mean, you can still hear a little rattle. It's the one on the right side that I haven't figured out yet, but it's 10 times better than it was. So I guess what ended up happening was I was able to hear the second rattle because I eliminated the first rattle. So I knew at that point it wasn't the trim pieces on the hatch anymore, so I took out pretty much all the trim in the back of the car. So once all the trim in the back of the car was out, the rattle was insanely loud, and I thought it would be easy to find because it was so loud that it just seemed like it had to be loose change or a nut or a bolt or some piece of metal banging against the metal or rattling against the sheet metal or something, but turned out to be extremely hard to find. So here's the next part of the video. Alright, so the rattle saga continues. I'm absolutely determined to get this fixed. I put a whole bunch of weather stripping and foam behind this side, and I think there's no rattles there. Nissan already puts some sort of soundproofing behind these anyway, so I didn't have to do much, but I was hoping that I'd find something rattling back here. I don't seem to see anything. The jack is tight. I took the tools off the top. They weren't rattling. So my conclusion is it's something in this piece right here. Because if you... I don't know if you can hear that or not, but this is... There's definitely a rattle in this area, so I'm going to take this off and see if something's loose behind that. I don't think there is, so if I can't find it in there, then I've checked pretty much everywhere else. So with the plate removed, what's behind here is obviously all the parts to open the rear hatch electronically. So there's a plug here. I don't know where the rattle's actually coming from, but and I won't be able to really demonstrate this too well. But without that in there, that rattle is gone. So it's definitely coming from somewhere in here. What I'm thinking is it's this bar right here. You can see how much play that has in it, and I'm pretty sure that's my rattle. So 3 weeks later, I think I finally have figured out the final rattle, and now I just gotta figure out how to fix that. So for today, I just put this back in, and I'm gonna figure out a solution before I put the back piece of plastic on here. But I think if I can disconnect that bar and then put some heat shrink around it, that might solve the problem. But hopefully that will be the final rattle. Anyway, while I had this plastic out, a couple of interesting things is, I don't know if you can see that, but right there and right there are two unused harnesses. So I'm wondering if this one here in the back is for a reverse camera. Now the Nismos didn't come with those, I don't think. I don't think it was an option on any of them, but I'm wondering if they use the same harness for all the for all the 370s. If so, that would be cool, because if I ever change the head unit, and that would be you know, power for the camera and also the reverse indicator, so the camera knows when to go on. That would sure make it a lot easier. So anyway, tonight I'm just going to put this piece of plastic back in and the carpet and stuff, and just call it a night. Alright, so everything's back in for tonight except for this plastic piece in the back. There is actually a hole right here that you can reach into, and I could feel that bar, and even when I'm putting pressure on that bar and tapping this, I'm still getting a rattle. So it's not the bar, it's either that plastic electronic mechanism over here or the actual whatever that thing's called, latch. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is taking that whole piece out and then looking at it closely and figuring out what the heck's rattling. But I'm not going to stop until I fix it, I can tell you that much. So at this point it just became extremely frustrating because the rattle was so loud, you know, you would think it'd be really easy to find and identify where it was coming from. But it wasn't, and so you know, we're 3 weeks into this now, and I'm still having this issue, and it just became more and more frustrating. Alright guys, so it's been a couple of days since I last worked on this rattle situation, and the good thing is, instead of it being 20 degrees today, it's 65 degrees. So I'm actually not working on this right now. I just want to take the car for a little ride since it's so nice out and put the windows down. But in the meantime, I'm just going to take this sock and try to jam it in this hole where that bar is and see if that helps the situation when with the rattle. So, I don't know if that's going to work or not, but I'm just really trying to pinpoint where the exact sound is coming from. I'm almost positive it's that bar, but I don't know. The other day when I was putting pressure on it, it still rattled. So anyway, I'm not working on this today. Fortunately, my brother-in-law has some leftover Dynamat from something he did a while ago. So I'm going to get that and actually put a piece right here and probably do that over the weekend. So hopefully you can see this where the hole is back there. I have that sock jammed into it, and it's definitely pressing up against the bar that I think is rattling. So hopefully this works. Alright, so since I had the GoPro mounted on the back window, hopefully you're able to hear that. It's extremely loud. It's ruining this whole experience for me with this exhaust. Alright, so obviously the sock didn't do anything. And now I'm not even sure this is where the rattle's coming from, because when you're driving it sounds like it's right here, somewhere in this area, in this back corner. And I've had all this stuff out of the car. And I just can't find anything that's rattling back there. It sounds like, you know, loose change or something. It's so loud, but I can't find it. So I'm not sure what to do at this point. So one of the other things I tried was taking this little back glove compartment thing out and drove around without it, and it still rattled, so that wasn't it. There's a little plate back here which leads to some electronics. I took that out, nothing was loose in there, so that's not it either. So I'm kind of ready to give up on this whole thing. I think what I'm going to do is get the Dynamat, put it on this section here, and then put the plastic cover back on, and maybe that'll do something. I don't know. I don't really know where else to look. It's not underneath the car, so I don't know. Could that be it? So I've literally had almost every piece of plastic out of this car in the back over the past month, trying to find this rattle, and put weather stripping behind certain areas and padding, and anything that you would think would cause a rattle would no longer be rattling. And if after all that, if it just turns out to be this, first I'll be happy because I finally figured it out, but then I'm also gonna be pissed that I just wasted a month trying to figure it out. So I have to wait for my wife to get home and sit inside the car, and she can move that around. I'll see if I could hear that inside the car. Rather than wait for her to get home, what I did was just pulled it really tight around the top of the gas cap so it wouldn't rattle anymore, and I'm just going to go around the block. I don't want to disconnect it just yet until I know that's actually it. Well, that wasn't it. We even tried this. So took the heat shield out. That wasn't it either. Stuck my daughter in the back of the car. I know you're not supposed to do stuff like that, but we only went around the neighborhood and still couldn't pinpoint it. Alright, so yesterday before I left my office, I took a whole bunch of old socks, stuffed them in all these holes here, and I think it worked for a little while. I couldn't really tell though because it was pouring rain, and the tires are kicking up a lot of water, so it was pretty loud anyway. But I did think it worked for a little bit. But then it came back, so I don't know if the socks moved, I don't know what happened. But anyway, I got this material from my brother-in-law. It's not Dynamat, but it is a sound deadening material. It's super thick, super heavy. It does not have an adhesive backing, so what I'm going to try to do is cut a thin strip and then somehow get it in here and run it in this area back here, and then take the rest of it, leave it over the front of this, and then sorry, I couldn't tell where the camera was pointing. Leave it over the front of this, and then put the black plastic trim on top of that and see. Hopefully that works. Here's the piece of this material that I cut, and like I said, I'm going to try to get it in here. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to take this section off again, and I'll have plenty of room to get this in there properly. But my goal is to get it in there behind all this, and because I still think this is the area where the vibrations are coming from, so, or the rattles rather. Okay, so I ended up having to take this out, and I was able to get it stuffed in there. I had to cut it down a little bit smaller, but it is in there. And I couldn't get it exactly where I wanted to because of, it's hard to show you guys, but because of this piece right here. There's one on this side and there's one on that side. So it's kind of laying down in there, but hopefully that'll do enough to deaden the vibrations coming from the exhaust, which will prevent the rattles. I do think this is the problem right here. This and, well, it's hard to do it right now. Both of those things rattle. I don't really know how to fix this from rattling. Yeah, I guess you can wrap it in something, but I don't know what. But anyway, the next step is to put this back in, and then I'm going to cut another piece, lay it in the front here, and put the plastic trim back in and pray for the best. Okay, so here's what we got. This is the back side of the plastic trim piece that goes in the back, and here's the sound deadening material I just cut. I had to leave a little bit more of an opening over here so that when that snaps in, I'll have room for the connector. But I'm not going to glue it in, because if this doesn't work, I'm just going to take it out. So I think there'll be enough pressure to hold it in place once I snap this trim piece back where it goes, between the trim piece and the sheet metal. So that's my next step. All right, so everything's back in, and that just leaves one thing left to do, which is drive around and get aggravated again, because for some reason I just don't think this is going to work. But let's give it a shot. It worked. Explain how happy I am right now about this, but this 1 month rattle issue is over. So problem solved. Tomorrow I will drive around with the GoPro mounted in the back, like it was the other day, so you guys can hear the difference. But problem solved. I'm very happy. So finally, after almost a month, and after tearing my car apart looking for this stupid rattle, it's finally fixed. So obviously it's that latch mechanism that's causing all the rattles. It's strange though, when you're driving, it does not sound like that's where it's coming from when you're able to hear it. So I was thrown off a little bit by that, and I was convinced it was the back passenger side corner. But anyway, the soundproofing did the job, and it's completely fixed now. There's no more rattles. All right, so the moral of this story is if you're a 370Z owner and you have a very annoying metallic rattling sound coming from the back of your car, this might be the fix. So if your 370Z is having this rattling sound, rather than tearing apart your whole car, check the two areas I mentioned, one being the trim piece on the top of the hatch, and then the locking mechanism behind the bottom trim piece. If you can soundproof that area, you should be good to go. I also think it's important to note though that I didn't have this rattling problem until I put the AAM Short Tails on, so it became so annoying that I almost thought about putting the stock exhaust back on, because I just couldn't take it anymore. So I'm glad we found a solution, and I'm glad it's fixed, and I love the way the exhaust sounds, so I'm glad I didn't change it out. Also, I know some of you guys might post in the comment section that of course a car like this is going to have rattles, and I should have bought something else if I didn't want rattles, but the reality is I don't care about little plastic rattles, but big metallic ones I do, and you know, when it's ruining your driving experience, then something has to be done about it. Anyway, I hope this video helped somebody, because this really was a frustrating experience for me, but anyway, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd greatly appreciate it. Feel free to comment. And I think I'm going to end this video with the GoPro facing out the back window again. And now hopefully you can hear how the car is supposed to sound without the rattle. So anyway, thanks again guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you soon.